Hey everyone, it's Chris Guns. My guest today, Philadelphia's own 154-pound contender, Gabriel Rosado. To the common man like me and you, call him King Gabriel. Let's get him on the line. King Gabriel Rosado, thanks for joining us at PBI Radio. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell me about yourself. What part of Philly did you grow up in?
I grew up in North Philadelphia, section that's known as the Badlands, and neighborhood was predominantly Hispanic community, and it's a great fighting city. A lot of great Philly fighters come from North Philadelphia, so it's definitely a place where you're proud to be a Philadelphia fighter with all the history that Philadelphia brings.
Yeah, North Philly's got a bunch of bad and wild neighborhoods.
Dick Taylor, Bernard Hopkins, Ray Robinson, all the Philly legends, man. It comes from North Philly.
Best of the best. And tell me about your household. What kind of household was the Rosado household? Who was in it?
Well, my household was a Christian household. We went to church growing up, and even though the community was tough neighborhood, my parents, they did the best they could, and I was, we didn't grow up with the finer things, anything like that, but my family, they raised me rich in love, and growing up, you just don't even realize that you just don't even realize that you don't have much, but because there was always food on the table, and my parents were always did the best they could, and love is the most important thing when you're raising a family. Parents gave me a lot of love, so I had a good childhood growing up.
Yeah, how many siblings you have?
I had two sisters, an older sister and a smaller sister.
No,
and, we grew up really close. Me and my sister actually lived together. We're roommates. My older sister, so I grew up protecting my sisters and things like that. Even though my older sister, she's older than me, I behave more like her older brother.
Mm-hmm.
So very protective of them.
So you're a good kid. Were you into sports growing up too?
Yeah, I was into baseball. Baseball was actually my first love. Mm. The rec center where I train at for boxing, I actually was in that rec center since I was 8 years old, playing baseball with Officer Frank, who ran the Philadelphia Power Center, which was a block away from my house. So, I was really into sports, especially basketball. I like basketball, and I was always playing football. So, very active.
And when did boxing come into the picture?
Boxing actually came into the picture. I was always into boxing. I was always into watching the big fights, and I was always into it. But I didn't actually join boxing until I was 18. I actually started late. But it was kind of something where, being that I was so athletic, it was kind of something where fighting came natural to me. It was just a matter of time of just getting experience and being seasoned. So I started late. So it took me some time to get to the level that I'm at now. But, I think everything falls into place at the right time, and I think right now is where, it's the perfect time for me.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times when you see fighters who do start late, they take a couple losses, and it's more of a learning experience. And a lot of times when people start too young, they might burn themselves out at a younger age too. So
Exactly. And the thing is that, I didn't have much amateur fights. I had 11 amateur fights. Yeah. So the beginning part of my pro career was kind of like my amateur, kind of like just learning on the job.
Yeah.
So, I think, the fights that I've been through early in my career were perfect, even though at the time it didn't make sense, because I was probably overmatched with experience and all that. But, I think if I didn't go through those type of fights early in my career, I definitely wouldn't be the seasoned fighter that I am today. So, everything happens for a reason, and I think, my career, I wouldn't change it. I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah, so you had 11 amateur fights. Who was your first trainer? What gym did you walk into when you first went to the gym?
Well, I actually began to train at the rec center where I originally was playing baseball since I was 8. And one time, I was 18 years old. I figured that I needed to involve myself with something positive in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And I always liked it. I was always into boxing. I always admired the sport, and I just wanted to try it out. And I felt like it was something that I really needed to do. So I just walked in the gym. And the guy that originally was running the gym, he said I was too old, and he actually told me to stick to basketball. So I walked away, and as I walked away, my trainer, who's my trainer now, Billy Briscoe, he actually caught up to me in the street, and told me to come the next day. And ever since, I've been with Billy Briscoe since then.
No, I heard a lot of good things about Billy Briscoe. What kind of trainer is he?
Man, he's one of the best in the city. He's definitely a student of the game, man, and he's always teaching me new things. He's a mental trainer, where he's always feeding knowledge, and we're always working on our craft. I think that's why we've improved so dramatically, because we don't just train to be in great shape. We educate ourselves in training camp by studying films and constantly working on old school craft, which is like pretty much like a lost art in the sport. A lot of guys are not doing what is proper. A lot of guys are just headhunting and are not setting shots up, don't even know nothing about decoy shots. And me and Billy, we really study old school films and we work on that stuff. I think that's why our fights and the growth has changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm. Now, who would you see in the gym when you first started going and hanging out there? What? Because in America, boxing isn't what it used to be, but Philly still does put out a lot of high-level fighters compared to the rest of the other cities in America, really. Who would you see?
Well, I've been in a lot of training camps in different places. Miami, New Mexico, LA, Phoenix. That's where I'm at now doing my training camp. And, there's no place like Philly when it comes to boxing. Philly is very knowledgeable when it comes to boxing. The trainers, there's a lot of old school trainers in Philadelphia. So, basically, when I started going to the gym, I actually had the privilege to see Bernard early in my career. And I had the chance to do 5 training camps with Bernard.
Wow.
So, being in 5 training camps with Bernard, I definitely was fed a lot of knowledge by him. He definitely taught me a lot of things. He always took time to explain things to me because he always saw potential in me. And Bernard always told me that I have a gift. He always just would school me and just help me out. And I took full advantage of that. So being around Bernard, Philadelphia, and going away with him in certain training camps has definitely been a big influence and a big hope in my career.
Yeah, it's so priceless to learn from someone like Bernard. What's like sparring? What's sparring like with Bernard?
Sparring's great, man. I remember when I first sparred with Bernard. He's so crafty and he's so sharp that it was it was overwhelming because he always brought something new to the table in every sparring session, and as time went on, when I got to continue on sparring with him, I began to pick up on his moves. So, in the beginning, it started off where I was being overwhelmed, but then it got to the point where I began to study his moves, and when he would spar with other guys, I just observed, and it got to the point where I started pulling off his moves on him. And then it got to the point where we'd spar. If me and Bernard spar now is really interesting because we're trying to pull off the same things on each other because I've been in so many camps with him where I can read him, and he can read me because he knows my style. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely like a chess match, man, and it's always interesting when me and him are sparring. But it's a hell of an experience, and definitely has made me better as a fighter.
Yeah. So you had 11 amateur fights, and then you decided to turn pro. Why did you decide to turn pro? Was it just because your style's more suited for the pro ranks?
Yeah. you know, and the thing is that, you know, I just wasn't too into the amateur system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the point system is so different to the pro game. You know, boxing, the amateur system is the opposite of the pro system. And, you know, and in every other sport, it's not like that. You know, basketball is basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and football is football. But boxing is not the same. You know, the amateur system, you know, fighters have to pity pat, throw quick shots,
Mm-hmm.
get out of the way. Where the pro system is more where you sit on your shots and you try to hurt the other guy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but by sitting on your shots, you know, you leave yourself open for shots. And since, you know, in the amateur system, you can't afford to allow a guy to land some shots because you could lose on points. You know, it's not good. And, you know, amateur system, you get dropped and it's only 1 point. And then the guy that got dropped can get up and hit you with 2 jabs and win by a point.
Ridiculous. It is.
So it creates horrible habits when you go to the pro system. That's why you see a lot of guys who come from the amateur system and are expected to be great in the pro system, but they can't make the change. You know, I think the only amateur guy that really made a good change was Andre Ward. You know, and it took Andre Ward some time, but you know. So it really affects your game. So, you know, I just wasn't into it. And my trainer, being that he's such an old school trainer and he's so into the pro system, you know, we felt that it'd just be better if we went to the pro system.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's worked out.
And you get paid there, so another perk.
That,
And
there's another.
and who'd you fight in your first fight when you did turn pro, and what was the result? Remember?
You know, I remember, well, you know, I don't remember who my pro did. Matter of fact, yeah, I do. It was, I forgot his name, but I remember he outweighed me by 10 pounds on the scale. He was supposed to come in at junior middleweight, and he looked like 50 Cent. He was huge. And, you know, I always had heart. I've always been a fighter. And, you know, we said, oh, the hell with it. I mean, we went with the fight. We took it, even though he was 10 pounds over. And I knocked him out in the first round. But, you know, my first 5 fights, I was winning, you know, and then I took a loss, which was a loss that I felt that I won the fight, you know. But you know, from there on is when, you know, I took fights like, you know, Angulo, and you know, fights that just probably at the time wasn't, you know, the best move for me. But, you know, like I said, it makes me who I am today. So I wouldn't change it, you know.
No, you gotta just embrace everything that happened to you. Your first man,
Exactly.
first guy you fought was Phil Hicklin, just for the record. And
oh yeah, Phil Hicklin. There we go. I remember now. Yeah.
And then, how'd you feel after getting that first one?
You know, I felt good, man. I always had confidence in myself, man. And even when I had my tough fights where, you know, I took a loss, I never lost confidence in myself. I always believed in myself. I just kind of knew that I wasn't seasoned enough yet, you know, and my trainer knew that too. But, you know, I'm a fighter, so I behave like a fighter. So, you know, whenever I'm called for a fight, I'll never turn the fight down, you know. And, you know, it can work against you or it can work for you. You know, in my case, the type of character that I have, it worked for me because I'm not a guy that gets discouraged or you know, loses confidence in himself. You know, I always knew that if I worked on my craft, I knew that I can come back from the adversity that I went through. So definitely worked to my advantage.
Yeah. In your fourth fight, you fought a guy named Cecil Yost, and you dropped him in the first round, but he got up and he actually dropped you back. That was the first knockdown of your career. But then he also hit you while you were down.
Yeah.
That was a wild one. Bring me back.
Yeah, actually him, that fight, that really wasn't an official knockdown. What it was is he caught me in the back of the head.
Oh, okay.
And the referee took 2 points away from him.
Mm.
So that's when I went down. I got hit with an illegal blow. And but I got back up and I dropped him 4 times. I was real mad about that rabbit punch. So I got my revenge back.
You brought him back to your basketball days and made him the ball. You just hit the floor and kept getting up, though. You won a close decision over Mustafa Johnson in your next fight. Think you deserve that?
Mustafa Johnson. Yeah, I don't. Nothing was ever given to me, man. I always fought hard, and I always earned my wins, man. Like I had a close decision win against Saul Roman, who it was a tough fight, and we both got cut, and I got 9 stitches across my eye, and he got 15 across his forehead, and we gutted it out, and that was a fight where I could have, where the average guy would have quit because he was so strong, and he was so much more experienced than I was. He had about almost 40 fights at the time, and he was solid. He was in great shape, and I think I only had about 14 fights, I think, at the time. And it was a fight where I could have got discouraged easy because he came swinging right away, and I made the adjustment, and I pulled out a close decision, and it was a tough fight, but it was a fight where I definitely deserved to win because I just gutted it out at the end of the rounds.
Yeah. Then you brought up your fight with Chris Gray, first loss of your career. You fought him in the legendary Blue Horizon. What's that like for a Philly kid to be fighting at that place before it closed down?
Oh yeah, man. I'm glad that I got to fight there at the Blue, even though I didn't get the outcome that I felt I should have got. But fighting at the Blue is definitely is a great thing because it's legendary. The greats fought there. There's a lot of war, a lot of history. So definitely I can say that that I fought at the Blue.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. And that was your first time going 6 rounds. You didn't have much of an amateur career either. Were you tired at all after 6 rounds?
No, I wasn't. I thought I pulled out the win. I was putting pressure on them, and I had them hurt a couple of times. But I don't know, man. I don't know why I didn't get the decision. I truly thought that I won the fight. But that's just you never know what the judges are looking at or what the judges want.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it happened, where it is what it is.
So the loss didn't bother you much, losing that 0?
No, it hurt. I think that was the first time I cried taking a loss because I was so shocked. I thought I won the fight, and when they said that he won, I remember breaking down in the locker room and crying because I was like, it was like the worst feeling. But it's just one of those things where you just have to, you can't do nothing about it. You just got to keep it going.
You returned 3 months later with a first-round stoppage over Chris Overbay, but then you drop another 6-round decision to Joshua Nyong'o. Take me back to that one. What was that one like?
Well, yeah, I remember Joshua Nyong'o was he's an experienced guy. He had a lot of fights. Had a couple losses, but he fought top competition. He fought a couple guys that was good fighters, and it was a war, man. It was fought back and forth. And another thing at that time, I was young and I was coming up, and I was coming up, and at the time, the guy that I was getting promoted by kind of took advantage of me and kind of like how you say, kind of like talked me into leaving my trainer at the time. I fell for it. And, so I left my trainer at the time to stick with him. And, he completely tried to change my style where he wanted me to, be more of a right-hand puncher because he liked that I had a good right hand. So I didn't have my trainer at that time when I fought him. And I took a tough loss. But then, in the rematch, I got back with my trainer, because I realized it was a stupid move, leaving my trainer. And I got back with my trainer, and we fought Joshua in a rematch, and I ended up knocking him out in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
so we made the adjustment, and we got the victory. We got the revenge.
How good does that feel when you put it together and beat this guy who beat you?
Yeah, it feels good, man. It always feels good. My attitude is I feel that all the guys that I lost to, I feel that if I fought them now, I would destroy them. I really do feel that way. At the time, I'm just really look at it as just I'm a completely different fighter. I'm smarter, I'm bigger, I'm stronger. My boxing IQ is there. I understand what it takes to win. I understand what it takes. What I have to do during a training camp. And I'm a much seasoned fighter, man. So I really truly feel that any guy that I fight right now in the rematch, that I lost to in the past, I truly believe that it would be a completely different outcome.
And you showed that to Mustafa Johnson. You revenged that too. You won a majority decision against him in the first fight, but then you won a much more clear decision in the second fight.
Yeah, it was like no contest in the second fight. So I showed that when I fight a guy in a rematch, it's no contest. And with Joshua Nyango, it was a war. It was a back and forth war. And if you see in the rematch, he could barely touch me. I was using my angles and using my speed, and I was stronger, and I dropped him. I think 2 times. In the third round, I ended up stopping him. Because I had the ability to make an adjustment, and that's something that me and my trainer work on is being able to make an adjustment in the middle of the fight, because that's what changes a fight. Is the fighter that can make the adjustment. If you stay stuck with the same style, and the other guy is making you pay, and you can't switch up, then you're in for a tough night. But if you're able to adjust, that's what changes the fight around. And I'm able to do that, and I did that against Sagoon Powell in my last fight. But his southpaw style kind of gave me a little difficulties in the beginning. But once I gave him a different look and a different angle, the fight totally turned around.
Yeah. And then you returned less than a month later after that second Mustafa Johnson win, and you fight 15-0 James Moore on ESPN. That was your first fight on ESPN, right? First televised fight?
Yeah, it was.
How'd that feel? Was there any added pressure with the cameras there?
No, that's always been my attitude, man. The higher the stakes, I love it. I really do. With James Moore, I got that fight on a 2-week notice. When I jumped on top of it, and I remember I had just came off my first training camp with Bernard Hopkins, so I was like eager to get in the ring and pull off these moves that I was learning from Bernard in camp. So at that time when I fought James Moore, I still was raw. I wasn't the fighter that I am now. But I just I had the will to win, and I outpointed him.
Yeah, and that was the first time you went 8. You felt good after that one, I'm sure. And
I went 8 in that fight.
Your next fight was on ESPN too, and you lost this one to Fernando Guerrera. You dropped him in the third though. And what do you remember about that night with Guerrera?
There's a lot of things that went wrong in that fight. Basically, one of the first things was that they cheated us on the scales, and that was never announced. It was put under the table, and pretty much we were supposed to fight at 154, and Guerrero came in at 160. They weighed all the guys, all the fighters, and all the fighters were on the money. I stepped on the scale and I was 154 on the money, and then he steps on the scale and he's 160. So we said, whoa, he's off. And then, they tried to tell us that the scales was off by a couple pounds. And they were bringing out these paperworks and all this nonsense to cover up the BS. He pretty much was overweight. And, at the time, my ex was pregnant. And, I had a fight, I needed the money, and I was actually sick going into that fight. I had the flu, and, I remember taking penicillin for that fight, and that's why my eyes swelled up so fast in the first round, because the doctor told me that the penicillin is what created my eyes to blow up. So, it was like a lot of things that went against me that day, being sick, and then him coming big on the scale. Definitely worked against me. I remember I was outpointing him in the first couple of rounds, and then in the third round I dropped him. But in that same round that I dropped him, when I went back to my corner, I told the corner that I couldn't feel my arms. My arms got real heavy on me. I wasn't feeling good. And you can tell if you watch the fight, you can tell I'm just too slow. I'm not there. I tried. I gutted it out. And I tried the best I could to win, but my body just wasn't cooperating with me that day.
And you return again, and you score another stoppage in the 5th round, this time over Ariel Espinal. And then you fight former champ Kasim Uma. Take me back to that one, the Uma fight.
Yeah, I remember fighting Kasim Uma on the 2-week notice. And, it was my first 10-rounder. And I remember when I was an amateur, when I first started boxing, Kasim Uma was getting ready to fight for the IBF championship against, what's his name? Vernon Phillips.
Yeah.
And I remember Kasim Uma, he put a beating on me in camp. And then I remember telling my trainer, I said, man, wouldn't that be something crazy if I fought Kasim in the pros, and then 4 years later I ended up fighting him. So it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And, I remember it being a tough fight. Kasim, he's a pressure fighter, man. And, a lot of people thought that Kasim looked great that day. He was in good shape. He was trying to do his comeback. He was in good shape. But, I just was determined to win, man. And, I pulled out the victory. But it was definitely a tough fight. But, I did pull out the victory.
Yeah, it's got to feel incredible not to have much of an amateur career and young pro, and you're already beating a ex-champ. It's pretty incredible, man.
Exactly.
Then you fight.
Yeah, definitely was.
You fight Alfredo Angulo. He's coming off his first loss to Kermit Cintron. Take me back to that one.
Yeah, I remember, basically, my career, it hasn't been a smooth one. At the time when I fought Angulo, I just got married. At the time, I'm divorced now.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was married. I had just got married. My daughter was just born, and I had to put food on the table, and I had to work, and I had a really tough job when I was fighting. When I went to fight Angulo, I was working for the water company, basically putting water mains underground.
Wow.
But I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't get out work till about 4:30 in the afternoon. And it was a hard job, man. It was a labor job. Mm. And by the time I got to the gym, I was exhausted. I was tired. I didn't even have the energy to run. No. So I really wasn't. It was a fight where my heart was in it. I wanted to win the fight, but I really wasn't prepared for that type of fight. And I got caught with a shot that I thought that it was a shot behind the head, but it is what it is. But I physically I just wasn't ready for that fight. And it's just I'm not the type of fighter that was spoon fed. I'm not the fighter that was taken care of by big promoters, and my bills are paid, and I got a big fat bonus, so I don't have to worry about working. I had to work. I had to put food on the table. So I wasn't fortunate to be able to train, and that's it. So going into that fight, that was just the ordeal, and I paid. I ended up taking a loss, but that's just my story as a fighter. That's just where I come from.
Mm-hmm. And were you able to recover at all after the first knockdown?
Yeah, it was just my legs weren't strong in that fight. Yeah. My legs felt weak. Like I said, I wasn't able to really train the way I wanted to. Mm. But after that knockdown, man, it's like I always had that hunger where it's like, man, I know I can do it. I know I belong here. And it was just I had to just keep on hammering away and just not quit, man. And I've never had a quitter's mentality, and I never thought of myself as an opponent, because there's fighters that they take losses and they think of themselves as an opponent, and then they start telling themselves, well, you know what, I got losses, so I guess I'll just fight for paydays. Mm-hmm. I never had that mentality. I always told myself, you know what, it's cool. I'll be back. And, that's just the mentality I've always had.
And did you ever get hit that hard before yet, up to that point?
The thing was that if you look at the film, the thing is that the shot that caught me was, we were in the middle of a clinch. And in the middle of the clinch, the ref was yelling break. But Angulo threw a shot that caught me right behind the ear. So it was a shot that I didn't see. So we're in the middle of a clinch, and, you know, his right hand was free.
Yeah.
And I was kind of dipping low, and when he threw the shot, it landed right behind my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, those are equilibrium shots. Those are shots that, you know, take your legs out. So I never even saw the punch. I never felt it. So, you know, I got caught and I went down. You know, in the beginning part of the fight, he did land some shots that caught me where I was able to handle the shots. But, you know, this was just a shot where we was just in a clinch and I just got caught and, you know, I never saw the shot and I ended up getting hurt.
Yeah. You talked about your fight with Saul Roman. After that one, you got your first title shot, the USBA light middleweight championship. You fight Derek Pooh Ennis. What happened that night with Derek Ennis?
You know, the fight with Derek Ennis is another fight where everyone in Philadelphia felt that I won the fight. Not too many people felt that I lost that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I had Derek hurt about 4 or 5 times in that fight. I cut his eye open in the first round. You know, I brought the fight to him. You know, I was on top of him. You know, in the middle rounds, I kind of put my foot off the gas and kind of, you know, took a break because, you know, it was my first 12-round fight.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I didn't want to gas out. You know, and that's the only time when he really got into the fight. But then, you know, I went right back to him. And, you know, I felt that I won the fight. And, you know, everyone in Philly, I've never had anyone in Philly tell me I lost that fight.
Yep.
Every time I go to the gym, everybody tells me, yeah, God, you know, I thought you won the fight.
Yeah.
But, you know, he got the decision, so, I mean, it's history. And the thing is that, you know, if you look at if you look at where he's at now, you look at where I'm at right now, you know, I'm right now fighting for the #1 spot for the IBF.
Yeah, it makes you
know, that just goes to show that, you know, I didn't hang my head down low and I just continued on. And, you know, I'm fighting for the #1 spot now.
So who really won that fight? I guess it was you. That was your last loss, and you come back and you whitewash Jose Medina. You win every round.
Yeah.
And then you stop Jamal Davis for the interim NABA light middleweight title. How'd that feel to hold that belt after you've been through all you've been through in your career?
Yeah, well, you know what? When I took that loss from Derek Ennis, even though in my heart I felt that I won the fight, I remember feeling that I kind of let it slip because I did feel that I won the fight, but being that in those middle rounds, I did kind of take my foot off the gas. I felt that it was my fault, you know, and, you know, I just made